I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know this well. We are all uniquely created. Yes, we are. And sometimes I think when we go along with our daily lives, we tend to forget that, we overlook it. But never forget that. Never overlook it. Welcome to another edition of When Black Men Talk. I just happen to be your host, Mark Elliott. Appreciate you giving us an ear. And when I speak of uniquely created, I have a gentleman that we're going to be talking to for a period of time. This cat right here fits that right to the T. And as you start to listen, you're going to realize, man, this is a young cat. It's not, I might be twice his age. I'm telling my age in a sense. But when you hear the intelligence that this man's speaking comes from, I'm just happy to have him here. And the thing about this cat that always kind of stood out to me, he wasn't born here in this country. No, he wasn't born here in the States. I'm allowed to tell you where he was born. Where were you born, sir?
I was born in Burundi,
Burundi.
East Africa.
Ooh, Burundi, East Africa. I like the way that sound. Burundi, East Africa. I'm going to think about that for a second. And when I think about that, the word that comes to me is the motherland. One's country of birth, of ancestral origin, to which a person feels a deep emotional connection, similar to the one would feel to their mother. Now, for a long period of time, and it hasn't changed, Africa has been widely considered the motherland. It is the birthplace of the human race. We don't hear that too often, but we're going to hear that more this evening, or I should say throughout this episode. I want to take time right now to welcome to When Black Men Talk. This is his first time here. I'm hoping it's not his last time. I may not say his last name correctly, but I'm going to do the best I can. Sir Muyagi, how you feeling?
Sir, I'm feeling all right, brother. Thank you for having me once again.
Oh, man, the pleasure's all mine, man. I've been wanting to do this for a while, so just starting out, take us on an excursion of your hometown and your homeland, man. Take us back there. We're on the flight. I don't know how many hours it's been, but we're landing. Bring us there, brother. Bring us there.
All right. You all know my name is Sep Miyagi. First name Sep, last name is pronounced Miyagi. Originally from East Africa, Burundi. Bujumbura is the capital. That's where I was born. My mother and father and their family, they're originally from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which back in the day it was called Zaire, prior to their family migrating and moving to Burundi, Bujumbura. At the time, during the early 60s, Burundi was undergoing changes after they've gained independence from Belgium and France, and July 1st, 1962 was the date to be exact. So they were offering free land for anybody that wanted to come and grow crops or build a home, and they just needed citizens because the country itself was undergoing changes after the colonialism that was taking place for so long finally was coming to an end. So my grandfather, who's on my father's side, took the opportunity to move his entire family, from the Democratic Republic of Congo to Burundi, which is only a boat ride away from where they were. They were right at the border. I could say it was probably about a good 35 to 40-minute boat ride from where they were from, over Lake Victoria, which is the lake that separates Burundi and Democratic Republic of Congo, which at the time, as they knew it at the time, was Zaire. And my grandfather got there. He landed into Burundi, Bujumbura. Then he was able to be given land. And, he started working there, had more children, and my father was born. And once my father was born, him and my mother met each other in the late 70s while they're in school, and they got together and got married. And I'm one of 12 kids. I'm 6 out of 12 kids. My mother and father both have 12 children in total. So to date back, my father always knew he wanted something better for us, wanted something better for his family. And at the time, in the 80s, Burundi wasn't doing so well economically as many other countries in Africa. So he had to try to find another way to try to find, a better living for us. And in the mid 80s, there was always talk that a civil war was going to break out. It was going to take place in Burundi and Rwanda as well. So it was one of those things that my father took serious and he took to heart and he believed that it could possibly happen. So in the late 90s, I would say this was 19, I want to say this was 19, early 90s, I'm sorry. I want to say 1992. I was young. And my father then decided to try to find better life and relocate to South Africa. So he packed everything up, left my mother and 6 children in Burundi, and he made his way south to South Africa to try to find better living, better life. Because at the time, South Africa, as far as economically, they were moving forward and they had jobs. You know, it wasn't the great jobs, but it was jobs. And my father went there, and when he got there to try to find work, you know, and things was very difficult for him to find work because he didn't obviously have documentations to be in the country, you know, because they enter illegally. And we were still in Burundi, and the thoughts that my father had and what he heard about, you know, Rwanda and Burundi and those two East African countries, you know, undergoing into a civil war actually did happen and it took place. So right after my father left, the civil war then broke out. Um, I'm gonna take you guys back in the early days when Rwanda, which is north of Burundi, and Burundi itself was going through colonialism. At the time, we were colonized by the Germans, and then right after World War One, when the Germans lost, they also lost territories. And what the French and the Belgians decided to do, all the areas that the Germans occupied in Africa, they pretty much they just took over those territories. They spread it amongst themselves to seclude Germany. And when the French came through Burundi, they didn't change anything that the Germans had already had in place. The colonialism, they didn't change anything. When the Germans first arrived, we were all, you know, brothers and sisters from the same womb, north and south, spoke same languages, you know, different dialect, but similar languages. You got Burundi, you have Kirundi and Burundi, and then you have, you have Kirega and all these other, you know, three other languages that were, you know, that were spoken at the time. And when the Europeans came, which was the Germans and the French, when they came, they had to find a way to try to separate us. You know what I mean? Same thing
Mm-hmm.
that, you know and we experience going on here in the United States. They had to try to find a way to separate us to where, you know, we could, you know, see a difference in each other, which there was no difference, but they had to paint that picture in order for them to succeed with their motive, their mission. And what they did, they separated us by classes. And by classes, I mean they separated us based on our, you know, physical figures, as far as facial figures, height, weight. Then given the name Hutu, they were then given the name Tutsi. They gave the name Hutu and Tutsi was based on the length and the width of individuals' noses. And believe it or not, they succeeded with that because fast forward later, two countries, you know, and children that came from the same womb was still fighting over territories that was left behind after the French had decided to leave. And
Mm.
when they did leave, they left power and control to a particular party. It's almost kind of like back in the day, if we talk about here in the United States, where you had African Americans, you had Africans, you had slaves. You always had the one slave that dressed better, the one slave that was always in the house, the one slave that could sit there at the table and eat with their so-called master. And then you had the other slaves who were working in the field, working in the crops and doing rigorous labor. And when that individual that was living in the house with who they call their master, you know, he felt like he was superior to the ones that were working out in the field. And in a sense, that's the same thing that the Europeans did when they were in East Africa. They did the same thing. They left a particular group in power, and while the other group just sat there, you know, and was working, you know, trying to basically trying to make it economically. Economy was ran by that one particular group at the time, which was the Hutu.
Mm.
And that caused a lot of tension and a lot of problems in between, in the neighborhoods and between, you know, different, in the communities. And if you ever get a chance to look up, it's a book. It's also a story. It's called Sometimes in April. It'll break it down a little bit more to explain to you, what the Europeans did and what their agenda was. Because at the end, how do you take resources from one's, backyard without the individual that owned those resources, attempting to fight you or attempting to, keep you from, taking their crops or taking their natural resources. You have to find a way to distract them, find a way to, distract them in a way, to where they feel that, you're their friend, and to make them feel like, you guys, that they are just like you. And that is what they did. And then fast forward now in the 90s, early 90s, now the war took place. And this war that took place, it was between the Hutus and the Tutsis. Mind you, I said everybody was separated by class, but it's been going on for so many years that you can look at one and say, oh, this person is considered to be Tutsi, this person is considered to be Hutu. And the Civil War broke out. I myself, I was still young. I was only 5 years old at the time when it took place, but I remember it very well. So at the time, my father was already in South Africa, basically trying to find better living, better life for my mother and my siblings and myself. And he was in South Africa while all this was going on. Obviously, you can see only just through the news or through whatever the news decided to broadcast on air. Um, my mother, my grandmother, then decided that it was only right because we lost everything during that time. It was only right that we just try to find a way to try to migrate and continue going east because at the time everybody was moving east to try to get away from that. A lot of countries decided to close up their borders, and the one country that was actually accepting people to come in for safety as refugees was Tanzania, in a city called Kigoma, which is east of Burundi, Bujumbura. So I remember, us just traveling, walking, taking the train, and when we finally got there, we got to the refugee camps that the UN had set up, and it was just so funny, as I was young, I'm sitting there and I'm like super excited because I'm seeing the UN there and I'm seeing, them providing food and waters and all these things for us that, for us, us new arrivals. And I just felt like, wow, man, this is amazing. These people are just, super nice, and not knowing that, everything that's taking place is the doings of their ancestors. And, something simple as, them stepping in and changing it could have happened. But obviously by changing it, they'll be changing the benefits that they are benefiting from, through our resources that it was already subjected to them, so it's almost funny how, when you're not woke and you're not knowing, you know, you're almost looking at them like they're your friend, you know. And so we got to the refugee camp, and they then provided us with, living quarters and places to stay. And it wasn't the best conditions. I do remember, it was a lot. Um, Food was very limited, water was very limited, and mind you, we were all at the age where we were all supposed to be in school, and we weren't in school because Burundi obviously still going through their problems with the war, and Rwanda, same thing. The Congo in the East Coast, they had their issues. So this whole time is going by, and we haven't been in school. There was not even any talks of school. Something normal that normally, kids go through. Going to school and having, summer and friends, and we never had that. Growing up, we didn't have that. And when my mother finally connected with my father by phone and also through letters and letting them know where we were located, he then let her know that he had gained access to come to the United States, which wasn't in the picture, but he was able to, gain access to and documentations to come to the U.S. And he was just waiting for his visa and his paperwork to go through, and he was gonna, leave South Africa and to relocate to United States of America. And this is now 1994. This is 94, so this is 2 years after he left us. Um, then my mother decided, you know what? this conditions that we're living in, it's not good. It's hard to get work. Let's try to see if maybe we can, continue to move our way more east into Tanzania. And at the time, my mother was involved in the church, so there was a lady in the church. You could kind of say, mothers of the church. She sang in the choir, and she was always there. And she had a liking in my mother. She was much older than my mother, but she had a liking in my mother, and she had a soft spot for her. And with that, she was able to allow my mother, she was able to help my mother actually to, her and her 6 kids to move us to, where she lived, which was located in a city called Dar es Salaam, and that is the east coast. It's located east coast of Tanzania, and that's when we were able to move. And when we got to her place, she didn't have much, but she had a home, and she was able to provide us with a place to stay. She then showed us places to go and work and get food and arranged my brothers and sisters to try to get them into some kind of school. And she did that. And yeah, we stayed there for some time, just waiting for our father to get to the United States. And once he, he's settled, to try to see if he can apply for us to come to the United States.
Hang
And
on,
yeah.
hang on one
Hmm.
second, Steph. I'm gonna stop you
Yep.
for a second, man. Kind of give you a little break too, man, because
Yep.
to give you a chance to kind of recoup. And I'm listening with amazement. And when I
Hmm.
just, one thing I want to kind of zero in on when you say you was 5 years old through this period of time, and I guess some of your siblings were your brothers and sisters a little older,
Hmm.
and they weren't in school. Now,
Hmm.
I've known you for quite some time, my brother. I've known you for
Hmm.
quite some time. I want to come back to where you were with your father,
Hmm.
applying and coming to the States. But to know that at that point in your life, education wasn't a standard thing for you. I would
Hmm.
have never thought that. Never.
No, no.
Oh, I'm serious, bro. Come on, man. I
Yo.
mean, let's, I don't pull any punches. We have people here in this country, boss, that
Hmm.
go to school, preschool, daycare, kindergarten, and start off freshman school. They can't come close to what you offer and what you have with your brilliance.
Hmm.
So I'm listening, and that, a lot of things caught my attention, but that jumped out immediately, man, because you think about what's been going on and with the transformation, with the traveling. Your father's separated at one point, and he's over here. Your mother's here. They're communicating the way they're communicating, and look how, as a family, man. When I think about it, I'm looking how, as a family, you guys pulled it all together. God kept it all together for you, and
Yes.
listen to you talk, man. Listen to you
Hmm.
talk, because you would think at 5 years old, with no education at that point, you would not be who you are today. Just my personal
Hmm.
opinion. And at some point in life, we make
Hmm.
changes, we get education, but no, no. Hear that the cat that I've known all these years wasn't afforded education at that age, man. Kind of blows my mind, bro.
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
Hmm.
Now, I want to have you, go back again, because what you're sharing, man, is fascinating, bro. To say the least,
Hmm.
is fascinating, and we need to hear this, because we, as people, when I say people that were born here in the United States, a lot of us were born with silver spoons in our mouth. We didn't have to travel the road you and your family did. We weren't involved with none of that. But a lot of times we look back at Africa and we want to speak and act like we were there. We never been there, so we don't understand. So I'm glad that you're here sharing this to bring some light to what went on in certain locations and given the
Hmm.
history, because it's important. Because when we
Yes,
forget
sir.
our history, we're lost and it can repeat itself. So I wanted to stop you there and just kind of jump in and say that, because again, as we live here in the United States, and I'm saying we didn't have our problems here, but listening to some of the things you went through, it pales in comparison. So
Hmm.
picking back up where at that time,
Hmm.
your family was, about the education, your father was trying
Yep.
to come to the United States. You can continue on, please. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And then, we were still waiting for my father to, gain access. And when we then found out that he was able to get his visa and he, came to the United States, we were very excited. It was just a matter of time. It's just us waiting. for my father to try to go through the immigration process to try to file for us while he's here in the States. And so when my father got here, he ended up landing in Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas, out of all places. He got to Houston, Texas. He had the visa. He started working right away. He was working three jobs. We're talking, in '94. He's working three jobs basically to try to, take care of himself and to try to send us money too, and to send my mother money. And at the same time, show immigration that, hey, I'm working, I have a residence, I have a place to stay, my family's home, and I'm doing all the necessity and everything that's necessary to try to file for my wife and my children to bring them over to the United States. Um, because if we all don't know, if you want to bring someone from from one country to bring them into the United States, you have to show that you are financially able to support that individual that you're looking to sponsor, or that individual that you're looking to bring over to the United States. And that's one of the things that my father had to try to do, but it was very difficult because the jobs that he was working were all, minimum wage jobs. And at the time, minimum wage was what, $3, 3.15, 3.50 an hour. He was working at American Airlines as a coach cleaner. He had one of those jobs, and he was working at a janitor. He was working as a janitor in one of the hospitals in Houston. And then my dad was very skilled when he came to automotive. He was a diesel mechanic by trade. So he was able to. He had a mechanic job that he did about 2, 3 days out of the week, and the guy, would give him hours here and there, beyond the 2, 3 days out of the week if people called out. So my father had those three jobs, tried his best to work and save money, and it was just very hard because obviously the money that he was making wasn't enough to try to prove to immigration that, hey, listen, when my family comes here, I'll be able to financially be able to support them. So he didn't seek help through the church that he was going to, and the church was able to, get together and basically, help him out to try to sponsor us to come to the United States, and that's what they end up doing. So we got the call that, be in preparation to come to the United States. There's a lot involved once you get that call. You have to be healthy, one. So you go to you go to checkups pretty often. They draw blood, check urine. Um, they give you shots. They basically they do a full medical detail on any individual that's looking to come to the United States. Because so they say they don't want you to come over here and bring stuff that that's not here. That's what they told us. And we went through all these tests, and and everything went through by the grace of God. We then received our paperwork and visas and tickets to leave. And when we left from Tanzania in Dar es Salaam. Mind you, we've been there. We haven't been back to Burundi since we left when the war has started. So we were gone for almost about 3 years. And we still had grandparents, and we still had aunties and cousins and everyone still living in Burundi. That ones that didn't decide to leave, they wanted to stay. Um, and they had their reasons. And we had no form of communication with them because a lot of the times, what we know during that time when the war was going on, communication was very difficult, and it was very hard for you to even ship anything, you know, to anybody because the postal services was closed. A lot of those public places, that would assist people were closed. Hospitals were closed. Um, so it was very hard for us to be in touch with our family. So my mother, what she did, she had letters that she would write, and she would leave to the lady that was helping us out. And she would say, one day when the road is open and the services are back open, could you please, send this over to my mother so that way she knows, what's going on, what we've been going through, and also where we're gonna go because there's no way of them knowing that we're no longer in Tanzania in East Africa. We're now in the United States of America. There's no way of them knowing this. So she agreed. She took the letter. She took the notes, and my mother was keeping up with through the time where we were gone, while we were there. And yeah, we came to the United States. And when we arrived to the United States, we arrived to the United States in '97 here in Houston, Texas, where my father was living. And yeah, we arrived in the United States, and right then and there, I mean, we reunited with our father. It was a happy moment, very happy moment to see him, and it was a happy moment for him to see us, my mother, and yeah, it was good. It was we united again, as a family.
I mean,
And
I
yep,
mean,
go ahead, brother.
yeah, I wanted to say one time because I want to go to that moment right there, man, because I want to kind of pull a little deeper on what
Mhm,
it
mhm.
felt like, if you can remember, and I'm sure you can,
Oh
what
yeah,
it
oh yeah.
felt what it felt like to see your father at that moment, because your father went through a lot. You all did, but this man went through a lot to get you guys to the United States.
Yes, he did.
Three,
He did.
yeah, you got. I mean, three jobs is one thing, but he went through much more. And to come upon after all the tests,
Mhm,
everything that took place, and I'm listening to you talk about your mother had to write letters, and someday they would get to her mother. I mean, how to live like that, man? Come on, reality. We know nothing
mhm.
about that. We know nothing about that in the sense where common day now you pick up a phone and talk to your mother. Your mother's alive. Basically, you text your
Yes,
mom. Your
yes,
mother's
sir.
alive. But to
Right,
think
right.
that one will write and send letters cross country and pray one
Mhm,
day that their mother reads it, not knowing where her child is, that's deep, my brother. But again, going back to your father,
mhm, mhm.
at that point coming to the States, what was your mindset, your thought about this man, the way he's honored his family?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good question. Parts, for me, I remember my younger sister who was when my father had left. She was just born, so she never got a chance to, she seen him, but she was not even one when he left. So she was very anxious. She would ask me questions like, "What does he look like? Is he tall? Is he short? And I would just give her, you know, answers in which that I remember, the way I remembered him as, and yeah. So I would tell her, and when we arrived at the airport and international airport there in Houston, we arrived, and he was there. He picked us up. It was a lot of emotions, hugs, and a lot of cries, and it was definitely a moment, man. And I could see just the relief in my mother's eyes, knowing that she finally reunited with her husband, and she now can be able to get that help that she direly needed. I mean, dealing with six children. At the time it was six of us. My oldest brother did the best he can to try to help my mother out, and a lot of things that she couldn't do. But it was just very difficult. You can only imagine just being a single parent going through that kind of transition, and also your husband not knowing his whereabouts and his well-being. So it was a lot of emotions involved, and we wind up moving. And at the time we end up leaving the airport, we arrived to where my father was staying, and for us it was amazing because anyone, it was a one bedroom at the time. He was living in a one bedroom apartment, one bedroom apartment in Houston, Texas, and obviously that's what he could afford at the time. And we showed up there, and for us it was amazing. It was godsend. And I remember us showing up there. The apartment was on the third floor, and we walked up, and he showed us this is where we're living. For us, we were excited. Here we are with a kitchen in the house, and
A
we got a
kitchen.
we got running water, we got a bathroom. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yes.
what more can we ask for? You know what I mean? And it's like, we were super excited, man. He told us, he said, "Listen, I'm gonna do my best, and try to get us another apartment with another room." And we're like, okay. So yeah, we stayed there for a couple months. It was probably like 4 months at the most, and he was able to get a two-bedroom, and we were super excited. And the two-bedroom was literally two doors down, you know. But it was an amazing feeling because here we are. We now have a room that all six of us could sleep in. We have bunk beds, and we were super excited. And we're still working with the church that my father was involved with, and they were trying to basically get us situated with immigration and try to get us into the school system, and so we had a little bit of time to ourselves with our father, and it all happened perfectly because when we arrived, it was during the summer, so it was during summer break for the kids
Okay.
there, so
Okay.
they would tell us, "Hey, enjoy your summer because you guys are about to be enrolled in school." And we were all super excited because, man, we haven't been in school. I hadn't even been in school, so I couldn't tell you anything about it, But I was just super excited, I do remember that.
Man, I want to go back to Wow. I'm listening, man. I want to go back to when your father left. I think you said you were 5 at
Hmm.
that time. If you were 5, what are the ages of your other brothers and sisters, if you can recall?
Okay, so when my father left, let's see here, he left. Yes, my father left. My oldest brother, whose name was his name is Imani, and he was the oldest, and he was born in 1980. And my sister, she was born in 2 years. She was born, yeah, 2 years after him. And then I had another sister. She was born in 83. And then we had another. My mother gave birth to another girl named Noella. She was born in 84. Then I have a brother born in 86, and then my sister 88, and me 89, and my younger sister 92, 1992. So those are the children that my father had left behind when he decided to relocate to try to find us better.
Okay.
Mhm.
So when you came to the States, when you saw your father, how
I
old were you?
was say 97, 97, so I was what, eight. I'm
You
sorry,
was
eight. Yep.
8. Okay. And prior to coming to the United States, no school training of any
No,
sort.
I mean we were just basically whatever was given to us, like material from like kids in the neighborhood that had books and stuff, was given to us. When we would go to church, they would try to show us certain things, because at the time we only spoke Swahili, which is our native language. We speak Swahili, and
Okay.
that's what and we would just speak Swahili. And Tanzania, one of the good things about Tanzania, they also speak English there, so we were able to hear the English dialect just a little bit, but we weren't involved, we weren't fully influenced by it because we weren't in school, and in order for you to go to school there, you would have to have documentations, and we didn't have documentations, to be in Tanzania. We were just kind of just passing through. So it was on unfortunately it was unfortunate we couldn't, we weren't able to enroll in any of the schools, that they had available for the public, because we were passing through and we didn't have documentation. So a lot of the things that my mother would do, as far as with like the reading and whatever my sisters and my brothers, they knew how to do. They would just kind of try to show us. So coming to the United States and knowing that we're about to be in school and I'm about to have a backpack and and go to school, it was a very exciting, very, very exciting. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
For all of us, for all of us. And obviously coming here and not knowing a word in English, something simple as what's your name, we had no idea. But we was just super excited and we were eager to learn. And yeah, we got to Houston and they finally set us up for schools. They did everything based on age, just so that way we're not too far behind. And they monitored us, basically through the year to see how well we're performing, as far as, understanding, certain curriculums that they were giving at the time, which for us mathematics we were able to grasp pretty well, but some like reading and writing, obviously the English language was difficult, so they placed us in what they call ESL, English as a second language, which is a class that's given to children that that come from you know other parts of the world that's not the U.S., that don't speak English, and basically introduce them to the English language. And I mean the fundamentals to there's levels to it, to learning about adjectives, verbs, nouns. I mean everything that you can think of when it comes to the English language. Pronunciation is what the program that they put us through, and we started that program right away. And yeah, we were there for quite some time. And my brother, I mean my father, had his nephew that he came at the same time. My father gained access to Houston, and my cousin had gained access to Raleigh, North Carolina. And I think, Mark, I told you, my family's in the Carolinas, and it was very difficult at the time for my father to gain, good jobs. So my cousin was like, "Hey, if you come up here, in Carolina, we all can shack up together, and and there's work here." So my father said, "You know what? I'm gonna go there and see how things are looking, because here in Houston is not much." And that's what he did, man. He did that, and by the time you look at it, a year later from us being there, we moved right into Raleigh, North Carolina in 1998, and there is where we went to school and got jobs, and kids were born, and more siblings were born, and just life just took off from there, man. And yeah.
You know, it's interesting, man. You can think you know someone, you don't know them at all, man. As I'm listening to, you think you know some
Yeah.
people, and when you said 1980, it's interesting for me because I graduated from high school in 1980. And
Oh
here,
wow. Okay.
yes, and here your family is going through this in the country at the time, and siblings are being born, and my life was, of course, was different. But yeah, I remember you saying earlier about North Carolina and being there, and the happiness that I hear, man, when you guys got there with the education,
Hmm.
with the jobs and stuff, man, really. It's hard not to listen to you and just not see God along the way, man.
Oh,
It's
absolutely. He was with
yeah,
us all the way, man. I mean, oh man, that's why we give thanks every day, man. We wouldn't have been here. Who knows where we would have been if my father never made that move to leave his family, and which was very difficult because I got kids of my own, and I couldn't imagine just waking up one day and saying I'm moving to another country. And
yeah.
my father showed up here, and he had one of the things that was very difficult, my dad did go to school back home. He did graduate with a degree. He did have, his license and certificates to work with heavy diesel equipment, and which that's what he did. And, he did automotive body work. But when he got here, it was just like none of those things that he had were were relevant because when you come here to the United States, there's only certain countries that are in Africa when you arrive here in the United States that they're able to honor the licenses and degrees that you may have. For example, if you show up here and you have a degree, because you were a doctor in a part of whatever country in Africa, when you arrive here, chances are here in America the board is not going to accept that license. They're going to have you go through that whole thing again as from go through the whole schooling again, as if you just started the program. They don't accept the education that we have in Africa as education here. So my father came here, he had to start all over. He had to go back to school. He had to go back and get a GED. He had to go back and mind you, he's doing all these things. And my mother too, the same thing. And we're in school. So our summers were always school and school and school. So I remember I never really had a summer. My very, very first summer was my junior year in high school. That was the first time I could say that I had a summer where I had nothing going on, just a little summer job and just hanging out with friends and doing other things besides just school. I mean, from the time we got to the United States and we enrolled, my whole life it was just always school, school, English, English. And that's probably one of the main, well, that's probably, that's one of the main reasons why, the English language, we were able to, myself and my siblings, we were able to, pick up the English language the way that we did, because we had no room for breaks. It was always English, English, English. If we were in the house, we spoke our native language. But as soon as we left that house, it was always English. And when we arrived at home, it was always English. You could tell my father we have no homework. He said, grab a book and read a book and tell me what you just read. So, that was our summers. Summer was practically, what, 2 months? And school bus was picking us up in the morning during summer. And, kids are looking out, having fun. They're like, where you guys going? So we're going to school. We'll go to school, same hours. Doors will open at 8 o'clock and doors will close at 3:30. Monday to Friday, and sometimes Saturday we'll go to Saturday school for English, depending on, what the week was like, so it was school, 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 man. But it all paid off. It all paid off though, because at the end of the day, I really can't complain. My father had to do it that way because we needed, he needed us to do that because we missed out so much, and here we are arriving to a country that we know nothing about, and to avoid the distractions, and, to avoid all the distraction, his best logic was to just keep us in school, and by doing that, it kept us out of trouble, of course, because the neighborhoods that my father was able, what could only afford to live in, they weren't the best neighborhood, as we all know.
hmm
So they weren't the best neighborhoods. The kids that were in the neighborhood, they weren't the best of, influence, but we were in school. So if we weren't in school, we were in the house. If we weren't in the house, Mark Wu was in church. So it
Okay.
wasn't really much, I
Yeah.
could say that, we had, that opportunity, we had to be outside. Like I said, it was my junior year. At that point where I kind of knew better, than, what crowd to kind of be around and who to follow, who not to follow, So by the time
Yes.
when I got to that age, I was just like, my junior year in high school, I'm preparing to try to graduate and try to find something to do with my life. And that was my very first time, having, actual summer, and say, oh wow, this is what summer feels like.
Yeah.
Not having to wake up, you know what I mean? Go to school.
Your parents did an awesome job, Seth Miyagi. They did an awesome job, man. That's like an understatement to me. But you said your parents were at that time they were going to school as well,
Yes.
and they went back to school. And what was your father and mother majoring in doing when they were graduating their education? Because if I understand correctly, they went further than a basic high school GED education.
Hmm.
And that I want to really hear because a lot of folks here in this country, and I'm not trying to throw spears, whatever, but sometimes we don't even value education in this country like we should. Here it is, a
Hmm.
family of six make it here, make it, and you guys just took education on head on. And I like to hear the works of that place.
Yeah. So my father was in school, and he would go to school in the evening, and he would go to school in the evening. And my mother at the time, she was a stay at home, so she would do a lot of the stuff. She would go to English classes to learn English, and my father would, he was taking up classes for business, and he also wanted to become, you know, he also had an interest in theology. But in order for him to get there, he has to try to, obviously take the pre-reg classes and all the things that he needed to do to get to that level. He was doing that, and he was also working, as a mechanic at a transportation company. Pretty much, they transported, all types of goods. It's almost kind of like if you think of like FedEx or UPS. Just imagine like an outside company that would service those tractors or trailers or whatever heavy equipment that they had that they couldn't fix in the shop. They would then ship off to like a third party that would then service and work on those equipments. So my father, he worked for this company, and they had contracts with all types of places. They had contracts with Pepsi, um, FedEx, UPS, and the tractors would come in. Father would service them and ship them away to send them back to where they, back. And that's what he did. He did that, and he made a good enough money, while doing that, to where we were able to finally move out of the situation in the neighborhood that we were in. Move into a better neighborhood, and like you said, God was always there, and it was just blessings upon blessings upon blessings, and my father then, back in 2006, he then was able to finish, and he got his master's in theology and psychology. And right now, that's what he does. He's involved in the church. He's involved in ministry. Him and my mother. And my mother at the time, she was working. She started working as she needed a job, so she started working at a fast food restaurant west at Wendy's. She was working at Wendy's for a little bit while going to English school, and then she's then, right around 2004, she was able to get a job at Walmart, and that's when she started working at Walmart. And she just retired actually from Walmart. When I was back to, it's been a year now. So she retired about a year ago. She finally hung it up, and my father's still working. Probably give him about another year or so, and he's gonna hang it up as well too. But my mother, she's all done, and she retired with Walmart. She had over 20 years with them. And yeah, and for us, growing up in the home, while my parents was obviously in work or school, my oldest siblings, we would all just take care of each other. We all had a schedule of who's cooking, who's cleaning. If it was my day to cook or clean, I did my part. And then I also had younger brothers, at that point, my brother Hannah, Frank, and I had a sister. And, so it was my responsibility to watch after them, making sure they eat, homework is done. So we all had chores and things that we needed to do while our parents was gone. And Saturdays and Sundays. Sundays was church, Saturday was family day, and yeah, that's what we did, man. And we all just kind of just encourage each other along, and to try to do better. And if my brother came up with something or he came across something that of interest, and he could show me how, what to do and how to do it, we would do that, because it's like, we were always taught if I have it, my brother must have it too. And
Wow.
that's what my father always taught us, So if you're blessed, you're blessed, definitely. Acknowledge that you're blessed and also bless someone else, And that's one of the things that he taught us. And still today, he installs in us. He still, tells us, never forget where you came from, and you're here before a reason. And don't think this is it, Always continue to push, always continue to strive. And, if you have a nice car, that's wonderful. Make sure your brother too has a nice car. Make sure your cousin has a nice car. Make sure your sister has a nice car, If you're eating well at a restaurant, make sure your brother can eat well at that restaurant too. Make sure your brother can afford that same steak dinner that you can afford too with his own money. Show him what you did to be able to afford that steak dinner. Those are the things that he would always tell us growing up. And
Wow.
as you Mark, you met my brothers and you've seen them, and one of the things was when I got blessed to be where I'm at, I just knew that, hey, listen, man. I told my brothers, I said, listen, I got this gig going on and things are well, and it's up to you guys. I can't force your hand, but definitely come and see, how things are here in Connecticut. And you can make a decision from there, and right away they listened, they were humbled, and they followed up, man. And here we are, man. Yeah, God is good, man. God is good.
Yeah.
He's very, very good, man. And
It's
just
it-
mhm.
it's amazing, man. You speak of your brothers. Yeah, I've met your brothers, man. You guys all, man, carry a level of joy. Realistically, man, you guys are always happy, have this level of joy. It's like, no matter what's going on in the world, I love it. It never weighs you down. I can tell, man. It's like, you come in. I don't see you often, but every
Mhm,
time I see you, you represent yourself the same way, bro.
mhm,
You have this joy about this energy, this excitement.
mhm,
You want to get things done. You're about it, and realistically, it's not common.
mm,
It should be, and it's not
yeah,
common. And it says a lot to hear what you went through. And I'm still amazed that to eighth grade. I mean, grade. I'm not eighth grade. I'm sorry. Of 8 years of your life, no formal education, bro.
mm.
And you're going to go back and listen to this, and it's not going to surprise you. But
Yeah,
listen,
right.
yes, man, listen to
Mhm,
the intelligence that you speak to. And you got
mhm,
people that basically had those education opportunities, had it
mm,
afforded to them, and they're not there, man. They're not there. So yeah, you're right. When I knew your brothers, and I heard about, I remember when during COVID, you was telling me about your dad. When he the work that he was doing, man, it brought a joy to my heart, man. And it brought a joy to my heart then, and even now brings more to know really the road that you travel, because we talked about your past a little bit, but we never went this
mhm,
deep
mhm.
in. And to
Right,
hear
right.
that, bro, and to see the way that you have grown, matured, I can't see the way, but the maturity that you carry and the way you carry yourself, bro, it's not common.
It's
It's
not
not.
coming.
It's not common, bro. I'm
Yeah.
here to tell you. I remember, if you might
Mhm,
remember this, man, years ago when you were ready to get married, and you and I was
mhm,
sitting down at a table, and you said that you was thinking about getting married, and it was me and another gentleman talking, and some folks had said to you, "No, don't do it," blah 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 blah, and I was like, "Don't hear none of that. Don't
mhm.
hear none of
I
that, man.
remember that. I
Yes,
remember that.
sir.
Yep.
Don't hear that. Job doesn't cause divorce. People do." And I was like,
Yes.
if you found someone that you care about, that you want to make your wife, you're going to do that, make your own decision, which you were going to do anyway. But I
Mhm,
remember that conversation, man, and just to watch you from that point with your family grow,
mhm.
man, and move forward, and just to see you have, who you are, bro. Come on, man. From where you came from, come on,
Yeah.
man. Come on, man. Seth, come on, boss.
Yeah.
Come on,
Oh
man.
yeah. No doubt. You get so caught up in just, going through life, sometimes you don't have that time to sit back and just, analyze, your movement, and when somebody like yourself who sitting there and observing, observing my movement, is able to break it down and tell me the things that they see me doing while I'm in the motion, it's like, wow, okay, wow, I was doing those things, because, is not part of me that sits there and think about like, oh, I'm good, I'm better than, or just I'm just very thankful, and I'm very glad to be where I'm at today. And there's still, my situation, there's my situation was bad, but I do know somewhere around the world there's another person that has a story that's more worse than mine. And I'm just very thankful every day to be here. And like you said, show up to work to get the job done. At the end of the day, it's like, I can't let a bad day bring me down, because I've had a lot of bad days. And one rainy day is not gonna hurt me.
No,
And
it is.
you know what I mean? So I do know that, and it's hard sometimes. Things happen in life. And you find yourself, to where you have to regroup again and then say, hey, you're better than this. Come on, you got to keep moving. This is just a temporary thing. Keep it moving. Kind of just self motivate myself. And
Uh-huh.
my brother, my oldest brother, and I, we're very close. So we do share a lot. We talk a lot, and we help each other out a lot. And if he's down, he know I got him. And if I'm down, I know he got me. Same thing with my sisters. So because here in America, it's just us. My mother, my father, and my siblings, and all our cousins, aunties, uncles, they're all still back in Africa. We do have a cousin that I mentioned earlier when we started. He's here with his family, but that's it. Everybody else, as far as first cousin, grandmother, grandfather, everybody's home. If they haven't deceased, they're still in Africa.
Hmm.
My parents they do go home and travel, and go home and travel. And, I do go home and we do travel, and go back home to Burundi to see, we have our grandmother who's on my mother's side who's still alive. But
Uh-huh.
my father's father, he's passed. My father's father had, it was 9 children. So now they're down to 4 children left. Five have passed. My grandfather's gone. My grandmother's gone. My grandfather on my mother's side is gone. So it's my grandmother. She's now about to turn 90. She
Hmm.
should be turning 90 this year. Yeah. So she's still around kicking. And my uncle is
Hmm.
there, and my aunt on my mother's side. All her siblings are still around. But
Okay.
yeah, that's as far as cousins and uncles and aunties. They're all back home. So in order for
Okay.
us to see them, if it's not through WhatsApp on the phone, it's we fly over and we see them, because it's easier for us to fly there financially than for them to come here.
Understand. How does it feel when you go back home, man? What type of
Oh
feeling?
man, the first time I went back, man, it was amazing, man. I didn't know what, because there was a lot of changes. Because right around 1990, 98, 99, they put it, a new president took place, and his whole objective was, we have to clean this up, and we have to come and work together as a whole. We have to work together as a people, and he kind of was, that is the attitude that he had. And when he took office, there was a lot of changes that took place, a lot of policies that didn't benefit the natives or the people that lived in Burundi, was thrown was thrown out, and then created new policies and new ways to try to improve the neighborhoods, the roads, the hospitals, the churches, just anything, to try to just uplift Burundi and try to bring Burundi back. So it was amazing. So now when we do go back, you can definitely see those works and you can see those changes, better roads, better schools, um, and hospitals are better, than what they were before. Still there's still a lot of work that needs to be, that needs to take place, but it's much better than what it was when we were there. And there's a little bit more jobs, more opportunities, for work. Businesses are booming there, and yeah, it's actually, I feel like it's going in a better direction, because these newer leaders are now starting to realize that, how can you come to my house and see my goods that I have that are in my yard and expect to just take them and not give me a percentage or not even talk to me. So you come to my house, in which I have to invite you first. And when I invite you and you see what you like, let's now talk. And that is the way that this newer presidency, or you could say political group, is going. And you can see it. It's like, what am I going to benefit from me allowing you to do business with me? What am I gaining from this, or what are my people gaining from this? And which is good, and I feel like it's turning in a better direction than what it was. When we were there, when we were coming out of there. And one of the things that I do hope to see back home in Africa is free education, which is here in America, that's paid through the taxpayers' dollars. I would love to see, Burundi have the same thing, but they have a long way to go to get there because in order for you to have your children in school, you have to pay for it. There's no such thing as public education back home. In a lot of those countries in Africa, there's no such thing as public education. If you do not have the funds and you do not have the money, your kids just don't go to school. You gotta have money. You have to pay tuition. Either you could pay about a year, you could pay every 6 months, and it's for a person that's not working or it's hard for them to gain and maintain work back home right now, or even before when we were there. Your chances are you're not going to school. If anything, you're gonna be in school in the house, and your mother and father, they'll sit there and teach you how to read and write. You'll learn all those things in the house. You wouldn't learn those things in school because if you don't have the money, you don't go to school. So out of all the children that my dad, when he left, the only person that ever experienced a classroom setting was my three older siblings, the oldest, the top three. They were the only ones. All of us, we never sat in a classroom up until we came to the United States because my father just couldn't afford it. Between uniform and tuition, couldn't afford it. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so here in the States, we were able to help out a lot of people with the jobs that we have here because the American dollar stretches so far. So we were able to put, a lot of our cousins and nieces, and nephews, just to school because, something as simple as $500 could cover tuition for a full, full year, So it's like, what's $500 for us here, If I can send that over there, I can get these kids to school.
Wow.
Same as college, so you want to go to university, something like $1,000 here is what it would be, for the year over there. So we did a lot of those things, to try to help out those, cousins and nephews that actually showed interest in school, and actually wanted to extend their education besides just the high school, level. So we're able to help them out a lot. So one of the things I would love to see, man, is public education. Because here in America, man, it's, we can complain about it, we can complain about the curriculum, but you're at least given it, you're learning the basics, the reading, the writing, you know, and you learn the basic mathematics, just simple things as just counting money and just dealing with numbers, you're introduced to that. Whether you want to be introduced to it or not, it's given to you for free. And back home we don't have that. And I could say that, maybe that's one of the reasons why I always say, when Africans do come here to the United States, whether they're young or whether they're old, you know, we pursue education rigorously because it's not available for us back home. We come here and we're like, man, this is free. You telling me all I got to do is apply for this and I get it. So for us, it's like, if it's free and I don't have to pay out of pocket, I'm going to do it. And that's the attitude we have because back home, we don't have that. If your parents don't have the money, your family don't have the funds, bro, you ain't going to school, Mark.
From
You know?
time to time, man, we need to hear a person like you speak because a lot of things that you're speaking about, we take for granted. We do. We take for granted. It's offered to us, and we don't fully take advantage of it for that reason. And saying that some things we just aren't really appreciative of what's available to us. We're not, and we're kind of
Mm.
about some things get away. Hey, man, you're an amazing brother. I mean, what more can I say?
Thank you, bro,
Yeah, I
for
always
everything
felt that
again, man.
about you, but looking at your foundation and how things were put together for you, bro, I here again, I could have never imagined, and it doesn't surprise me because I know who you are. I've seen your
Mm-hmm.
makeup, I've seen your character, so none of that surprised me. But to still hear it, it's surprising. It's surprising,
Hmm.
man, and I'm grateful that you took time out, man, to spend some time and share it, man. I
No, I
appreciate it.
appreciate you again, and like I said, hopefully this ain't the next time, last time. If you have any shows or any subject, whatever you guys are talking about, I would definitely, now that I have the app set up on my phone, it's just something simple as an invite like you did, and if I'm around for sure, man, I'll
Oh man,
be able to, drop in.
I'm gonna get a chair and put your name on it, boss. Trust me, you're coming back. You're coming back, man.
For
You're
sure,
coming back.
man.
All
Yeah,
right,
this was
man.
wonderful, man. This was wonderful. I appreciate your time, brother.
I appreciate you, man. Go and enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk soon, man. We'll talk soon. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
no doubt, Mark. I appreciate you again, my brother.
You,
Thank you.
you take care of yourself now.
Yes,
And
sir.
yes, indeed. And you all that are listening, take care of yourself as well. You know God loves you and we love you too. Take care.